What's up, everybody? Sunday night, and that means live. Here we go with the In-Ring Wrestling Podcast, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, in your mom's basement, upstairs, in the parlor, in the nice part of the house that you're not allowed to sit in, and
right.
out in the garage. There you go. Casey Thompson is
Everywhere.
here. This was his bright idea. He said, let's do a podcast where we talk about people who didn't necessarily get their what they may have deserved, or perhaps more attention than they deserve. Let's talk about those that started their wrestling matches by being in ring. And I'm Kevin Kelly, just trying to help guide the ship here, just hanging on for dear life. We're going to thank everybody who continues to watch, subscribe, like, share, link to, and spread the gospel about this thing. Casey, we're doing good. How are you? You're a little. You had a wad of gum extracted from your head this week, it would appear.
Yes, I did. I had surgery on my head, so I had a some type of tumor. He said it. I said, "Where did it come from?" He says, "Probably some type of trauma." I said, "Well, getting hit in the head with a chair, does that count as trauma?" He's like, "Yep." And I said, "When I gigged myself, I would stick it there every time and cut it away." So the after effects of it all has been removed from my body 20 years later. So it's gone.
Jeez.
But yeah,
It's
it looked like
gone.
a wad of gum. It was ugh, yuck. It was disgusting.
It's like it
If
never
that
happened.
stuff. Yeah. Now I just have a few stitches up there and it'll be gone. It's just like
Very
my
good.
wrestling career. It's there and
Well,
now it's gone.
there you go.
So there's a lot
So
of stuff to
last week.
talk about this week, huh?
Oh yeah. There's quite a bit of stuff.
Before we get into everything, I want to get your a real quick thought on Goldberg. We talked
Yep.
very little about it at the end of the show, but now it seems like he's pretty bitter, huh?
What a little bitch.
Yeah, and he made like $1 million or $2 million for that show. I heard that match.
Did it sell out?
No, no, they didn't.
I guess he's come around now and thanked his opponent, which I guess is nice. But what a little bitch.
Yeah,
You
that's
got. I don't know. I don't know another way to say it.
yeah,
When
no,
you
it's true.
when you complain about your retirement match, about whatever, and what are you complaining about?
I guess
You
the whole
got.
thing, Vince promised him a retirement match, so they ended up giving it to him. Hunter
Mm-hmm.
gave it to him, but I guess it wasn't to the extent that he thought he deserved. Or I guess the biggest thing is that they didn't show the broadcast of him thanking everyone, which I listened to it, and it was kind of like it wasn't earth shattering. It didn't move you at all. Just like, oh yeah, thank this person, stuff like that. It was Cody
Maybe they
even
did
went
a.
in there and tried to, spruce it up a little, and it just, I just don't think the people. I don't know. I don't think Goldberg was the Goldberg as he was in the '90s. So that's there.
Right. Um, there are some guys who deserve that send off, and then there are other people who go, he could just go away, and that'd
Yeah.
be
I mean,
fine.
I didn't leave my boots in the ring or anything like that. I didn't get a retirement.
Now that, of course,
Maybe
is
we're
a
gonna have a
wrestling.
retirement match here.
Now let me ask you: do you know where that tradition began with wrestlers leaving their boots in the ring to
No, I
signify that was their
not.
last match?
Amateur wrestlers do that also. When they retire, they sit down and take their shoes off and leave it in the center circle, and that's to, you know, signify that they are walking away from their tournament competition.
Barefoot.
So yeah, yeah. So I know I'm
Um,
not really sure where it came from. I'm not the big historian. That would be you. That's your part of it. I just kind of fill in the ums and ahs and stuff like that.
I asked a question the other day, and I was genuinely curious. I wondered. So Vince Senior had picked when Superstar Graham. He knew when Superstar Graham was dropping the title,
Right.
and there was some consideration of Steve Kern, But eventually it was Bob Backlund, and even Eddie Graham said, yeah, Bob Backlund would be fine for you. So then
I
put it,
heard Kevin Sullivan told me that story. It it was supposed to be Steve Kern, and I guess they all had a little. They used to bet and make jokes about it and stuff like that, and they were looking for a very vanilla baby face to try to see if they could do something with, and it was Bob Backlund they sent up for it.
yeah, he was the most vanilla. But then I wondered, who did Vince Sr., because again, it was, so Superstar Graham came and went, but he really got over as champion, and he was very disappointed that Vince Sr. stuck to his plan. So I wondered, what was the plan following that, following Backlund? How long was he going to leave the belt on him? And did Vince Sr. have somebody in mind to put the belt on? We know that
Right.
Vince Jr., of course, went with Hogan,
Yeah.
and Sr. was mad at Hogan for the way he had left and done the movie or whatever. So I was
Makes
just,
no sense.
I know, I was curious, and somebody was like, uh, they were like, "Oh, we thought you were asking a trivia question." Like I knew. I said, "No, I don't know." This is one of those things that I didn't know, and nobody seemed to know. Nobody seemed to say, "I've heard it was going to be so and so," or "I've heard it was going to be
Right.
this person." But those are the things that I'm interested in. Like, what was what was this dead person thinking? How did that
You know,
how did that all
I had to
go?
tell you something that's in my head before. I've been meaning to tell you when we're on air for the last couple
In
weeks about
my
Blackjack Mulligan.
head. Tell me, I love it.
So Blackjack was famous for, he was great on the stick, right? He could cut
Yes.
a promo. And Jack would tell us, as we were around him, training different things like that. He said sometimes you just go out there and just make up a word because they don't know what it means, and you just sound good, you know, uh, symbol Sambruxus. People are like, oh shit, he means something. So there's one. Remember when Andre and Jack, they're the machine, super machine, giant machine, and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Blackjack did an interview, and he was like, "Oh, Suzuki,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Honda, uh, Samurai." So he was saying a bunch of cars and everything in his interview, and me and one of my buddies, we send it to each other all the time. And we're just laughing our ass off because he is around Jack a bunch and everything, and it's such Blackjack just making up, just talking shit behind the mic, and it just got over and got big. It was just funny.
I I loved all of that stuff because it was the gimmick of trying to hide the obvious, even though they weren't trying very hard to hide it. That's
Yeah,
what made it so much fun. And it was and the guys under the mask, Bill Eadie and Jack, of course, were having a good time. You could tell they
yeah,
were just having a blast. Whenever Jack got to do, when Jack was in serious mode, when he was in money drawing mode, let me tell you
right,
something, get mama from the kitchen, that type of stuff.
yep,
He was always great. But when he
yep,
would do occasionally like lighthearted stuff in Florida,
right.
it always he never ceased to make me laugh. I think he was with not Tyree Pride, or it could have been Sweet Brown Sugar,
hmm
and it was Jack being tall and his partner being smaller,
Yeah,
and he was coming up and he had a stick, like a kendo stick or something, and he was talking about all this
probably his
nonsense.
big walking stick he used to carry.
It might have been, and then he was talking about um he was giving himself, oh, it just, if I think about it, I'll post it to the page if I can find it.
Okay,
It'll be one of these things that I stumble across and go, oh yeah, that was it. I'll post it
yeah,
to the page so everybody can know what I'm talking about. But it was just being funny,
yeah,
and you could just see his overall talent because we got just so used to, let me tell you something, get mama from the kitchen and get everybody around and
right,
get in the pickup truck and that type of stuff. When he would talk about the serious business, the lighthearted
right.
stuff, he was gold as well.
Yeah, this when he was well, I don't know which one he was, the super machine or which one of the machines, and Gene Okerlund was doing the interview, and he's like, "Oh." Suzuki, Samurai, which is Suzuki Samurai, Honda. And then he said, Yamaha. He was just naming all kinds of Japanese made automobiles. And it was, Mean Gene was trying to keep from dying laughing. And, Jack's wearing the mask, so he's probably just laughing his ass off. And
Sure.
I love to seeing the blooper reels from something like that. That would be a fun watch, if those existed at all.
There are outtake reels that are floating around on YouTube that, of course, you stumble across, and
Yeah.
those are always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okerlund had such a good sense of humor. The one that I always see is with Kamala, where he missed interviews in St. Louis or something like that, and Kamala's talking. Oh, the good old days, Casey.
Yeah. Gene
Um,
was he was a cool guy though.
Very cool. Now,
Yeah.
did you see him at only Nitros? Because he probably wasn't at, well, he may have been he may have done some TVs at the MGM or Universal, right?
Yeah, a little bit maybe at the beginning, but yeah, he was more Nitro. I seen him more when I was doing WWF, because he
Oh,
was
okay.
yeah, that was in the 90s and everything. So he
That's
was
true.
very prominent then. So it was very this is a person that you watched growing up your whole life. He wasn't the big, star, but it was Mean Gene that everyone knows who Mean Gene is because of Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Let me tell you something, Meet Gene, that all that stuff and all that. So, but when we seen him, he was just like a super nice guy. I think one time we were in Biloxi, Mississippi. And he's like, hey, I don't know about you guys, but it's a really nice afternoon. I'm going to go walk over on the beach. We're like, okay, we'll go for a walk with you, Gene. So it's because the Civic Center or the arena or whatever it was across the street from the actual beach there in Biloxi, Mississippi. So
Yep.
it's little things like that. Like when I talk about Blackjack, we know Blackjack, so hearing about that, him talking up and doing that kind of stuff, making up names, and him telling me, yeah, I just sometimes you have to just make up a name to shock him out there, and then to hear him do one like that, and us knowing him is just kind of cool, with
When you think about it, we've had pretty cool lives when it comes
oh
to
sure,
famous people that we've met
right,
and places that we have been when big things have happened. So,
yeah,
um, that is, and again, I continue to see enhancement guys being featured now. It really seems like uh, I I'm sure that yours was not really like, well, let's go on YouTube and let's find a highlight channel with enhancement guys. But we're really the first podcast that's sort of the
yeah,
backbone of it. I'm now seeing a lot more clips where people are spotlighting enhancement guys. There were a group of guys who looked like something. They had the mullets and they had the satin jackets and they were in decent shape and they could move as wrestlers. And then they were just going to get killed. How often were enhancement guys talking about they were going to get a push? They were going to get the call. They were being put together with so and so because he could work. How often was that a thing? Did you ever hear of any sort of thing like that?
yeah. Once in a while, I mean, he was always hoping to be at the right place at the right time because we seen it happen with Johnny B. Bad came up to do jobs, and Dusty came out and seen them and saw something. And I know Bob Cook was one of the guys that they tried to a couple times do some things with, and I don't know what happened with it. A lot of times it could be the bookers change and Ole's out, Dusty's out, or Bill Watts is in or whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, it's always kind of cool when you see one of the guys, get pulled up to the main roster, basically, that was with you guys and was one of you guys. So
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, but it was a never ending cycle. You're always got to keep on trying, always got to keep on reinventing, changing things and all that. So it was, 10, 15 years of, trying. But some guys are mad and this and that. Me, it is what it is. I had fun. I made some money. I got to travel, so it's all good. Now I have a bunch of stories to tell.
That's right.
So it's fun.
When you look at, sort of the landscape of wrestling, you and I got into the business at the absolute wrong time. You
Oh,
especially.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because, like Cornette told you, if you guys
Hmm.
had been around 10 years earlier, you'd be working everywhere in every
Yep.
territory.
Absolutely. Yep.
What would life have been like for Casey if you could imagine it? Would you have chosen to work all over? Would you have been? I didn't see your partner as a guy who wanted to travel all over. He just kind of wanted to stay
Mm.
in Fort Pierce and be the king of Fort Pierce.
Yeah, it's probably because he had to want to keep an eye on his wife all the time, I
Well, yeah,
guess.
that's true.
Um, yeah, it's yeah, no, I wanted to go everywhere. Every You name it, I wanted to go. And, I could see, say, hypothetically speaking, we both got deals. He would be the one that would bring his wife to travel with him. You
Ooh,
know, yeah. So I mean, she was cool and everything, but not to go on the road with.
no, never
You
works.
know that. There's boundaries you got to keep.
Right.
So
And he would have said, and you would have been like, hey, let's go to, we're getting booked in Portland with Don Owen.
right.
We're going to the Maritimes for Emile Dupree. You would have loved all of that stuff.
Hmm.
Amazing.
He would have been like, "Oh man, we're wrestling in WWF at Tampa. You booked us both on at the Sundome."
Yep.
And we had the night off. And instead of sitting there making yourself seen, showing that you're an interest in wanting to be there, be a part of it, sitting out there in front of the monitors, he's going to come on, man, let's go. We can get out of here. We got our money. Let's get out. We can be back in Fort Pierce in a couple hours. I'm like, no. First, that's when I told you I was talking to Buddy Colt, and he
Right.
just wanted to. I'm like, no, no, So I ended up never driving with him. Actually, I never rode with him just because, we would wrestle and he'd be like, politicking to, yeah, man, can't you move me up to like second match? Can we be like second match when we get out of here? And I'll be tell the guy running the show, the promoter, I'm like, no, leave us where you want. Don't listen to him. I
Yeah.
don't, no, absolutely not. So he was
Don't listen.
always, yeah, it was just crazy.
Did
He
you
would,
okay, so when you were yeah, I know because I did this as well. Did you ever have a thought about where you would have wanted to wrestle? Like, and who you would have wanted to wrestle? Like, would you have wanted to well, you would have said everywhere. But where did you see yourself like, "Oh man, if I could just go here once, that would be awesome. If I could wrestle on this TV, this would be awesome." Go back in time,
yeah,
1970s, early 80s, be on whatever TV show.
and the Cow Palace out in San Francisco would be really cool.
Okay.
Madison Square Garden for that back in those days.
Mhm.
Any of those things. I wanted to go everywhere, be everywhere, and do everything.
Right.
So I would want to wrestle every territory. But I think those grueling rides in Mid South would be something really cool. You know.
I've thought about that too.
I think I would have done really well there because, I was never the partier and stuff like that. So I could get us to the next town always. So I think I would be figure it in because the boys would want me there because they know how to get us to the next town and they can just do what they wanted to do.
It's when you have a a kind of a loop, if you will, and you get to know that loop.
Yeah.
And it seemed like why would guys leave? They were, well, sometimes they were figured in, sometimes they weren't figured in. Sometimes it would be like,
Right.
you're getting a little stale. We need to move you on. Other guys might feel it would like, where would you, how would you approach that? Like wanting to move on before you got too stale because you would be a heel. You definitely would be a journeyman. You definitely would come and go sort of
Right.
as you please, make your own schedule. Um, that would be and the decision to leave a specific territory at a specific time. How difficult do you think that decision might be?
Well, I mean, probably for me, not that hard because whenever the booker says, "Hey, it's time to go," and I think back in those days, from a lot of guys, the bookers would try to send them somewhere else. We're going to send you out to Mid Atlantic to get a little more experience, and or we're going
Mm-hmm.
to send you out to Dono. They sent them places to get more experience, and then we brought them back in 6 months or next year or something like that. Um, I imagine like a 6, 8 months to a year at every territory and keep on moving. Once you start seeing, you make that, you run your enhancement challenge.
They started.
Yeah, that's
They took a lot of enhancement
yeah,
guys, and they took a lot of guys who were sort of like on the lower mid card, and made them
yeah,
and would give them extra spots. Thank you, Southern
yeah,
Joe.
yeah. Yeah, we have Australia checking in.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. Because I remember going up to WWF and I said, man, that's Pistol Pez Watley.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the job. Barry Horowitz he was famous for that. Jack Hart in Florida, but then we see Sam Houston, which he was always kind of that low card enhancement guy. I mean, he got figured in because of Baby Doll a lot. But you would see, uh, how about Ronnie Garvin doing jobs? NWA World
Right.
Champion was doing jobs with the WWF. I think Vince really liked to uh, put the screws to him when they came over, to him. If he had the opportunity to, you know, one step up, one up on them, on the NWA or WCW or something like that, he would.
He bought the WCW name and and infrastructure for $2 million, and then spent God knows how many other millions of dollars just setting it up to bury it,
Yeah.
to kill it dead.
And some of the guys came over,
Yep.
and some came over and did really well, and some came over and didn't have a leg to stand on.
Oh, jeez.
What?
As we
I was trying
transition
to
now
set
to
up a
our,
segue.
uh, that's a segue, all right. In fact,
Too soon?
trivia trivia question: first kind of official WCW match on WWF television was Booker T versus Buff Bagwell, and it got over like a fart in church. Um, Booker T stayed, Buff Bagwell left, and of course, as Casey alludes to, Buff had surgery late last week to have the lower part of his leg removed. Do you know the origin of the injury that Buff
Yes.
suffered?
Yes.
Now, was it something that happened while wrestling, or was it something that happened
No.
outside?
5 years ago, he was all, you know, messed up, and he went to drive and doesn't remember anything.
Oh,
He went through, back by the big mall, went through like as they say, a $300,000 building he destroyed, went through his SUV and completely, he said he's lucky he didn't kill anyone, and totally he's lucky he walked out alive. And
mm-hmm.
apparently since then, it kind of just totally just shattered his, they said, upon impact, it shattered his kneecap. It's just exploded.
Ooh,
So they took his calf off and put his calf up there to hold his knee together. So, and since then, he had like 31 surgeries, and it would never, I guess, never heal for the last 5 years. It just wouldn't heal. He couldn't bend it and different things like that. And I guess we all know he went to, DDP,
right.
and, Dallas helped him and all that stuff. And um, I,
Says he's three
this is
years
what
sober.
yeah, yeah, and I guess to try to stay sober because it's it's very painful and stuff like that. And I saw it from another podcast, Maven's podcast. Maven was there going into the night before, at Buff's place, which I thought it was weird because when I don't know if you've seen that or not, it's like a 10, 15-minute thing. He went over to Buff to see Buff the night before, and it was a nice little house, right? Nice house. And then the morning of, he went to Buff's house, and it was a nice house.
Oh,
And yeah, and with his girl Stacy, they went to the hospital, and everyone in the hospital is like, "You can't have that camera." They're like healing on him. You can't have that camera. And Buff's like getting mad at all of them and everything because he wanted the whole thing, I guess documented and all that.
right.
And then so they went. It was supposed to be an hour, half 2 hour procedure. It took like 5, 6 hours because they had some complications, but it is above the knee amputation.
Oh,
So he has
okay.
like, oh yeah, it was. I think it was supposed to be below, but it's above the knee amputation, and it's like a nub up there now. And
Oh,
he was like, they're in the hospital, and he's in good spirits and happy and all that kind of stuff. And he's like having Maven. He's like, feel how light it is. And they were like picking the nub up and down, just flopping it up and down, like, whoop, whoop, whoop. It's like, touch it. Can I touch it? Yeah. I wouldn't want to. No, this stuff just kind of skeeves me.
no.
But I mean, in his mind, he's like, you know what? I want to get back into the ring. I want to wrestle because he's seen these people, the Paralympics and, all that stuff where they're running marathons with the same kind of situation. So he's using that as motivation to try to get back out there and everything.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock here on Buff
Yeah,
Bagwell. And
exactly.
boy,
That's
oh boy,
exactly
oh
what I was
boy.
thinking the whole time.
Talk about guys who had I don't see a lot of people um, waving pom poms for Buff Bagwell to do anything in this industry. That
Oh,
guy seemed to have a lot of heat and a lot of enemies. Is that a correct
well,
statement?
sure, absolutely. He it was ironic. Me and my girl, we've been watching Dark Sides of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been picking out the ones I wanted to watch first, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, Buff Bagwell got his leg amputated." She's like, "Huh?" I'm like, "So we watched the Dark Side," and she's like, "Oh." I said, "Yeah." Now that injury that he says he's good from, he got it cut off, and she's
Right.
like, "Wow." But yeah, watching it, um, I guess we could really go back to the rewind. He was discovered by Missy Hyatt, so that has to say a lot right there, you
Okay.
know.
But
And Missy went to, um, "Hey, my boy."
yes, Jim Barnett.
Jim Barnett to, hey, look what I got. Oh, yeah, that's a really good looking boy there. And there's always been a aura around him that there was some type of alleged, some type of favors or whatnot for him to get a start because when he first got his first deal in WCW, he couldn't work
Mm-hmm.
for the life of him. He wasn't good because I've heard the agents tell the enhancement guy, hey, get him through the match, make him look
Right.
good. And him going out there and forgetting the spots that he called in the back.
Yeah.
So
Tweren't good.
that's but
Did you?
it's then
Okay,
it's
so
just
now I didn't know. I There are two people, and I'll put in the same category because I dealt with one and I never dealt with Buff Bagwell. I only met him a handful of times, but a
I
guy that
used
I
them on
dealt
my
with,
shows too. Yeah.
yeah, and a guy that I dealt with from time to time was Jimmy Rave, and Jimmy Rave was a typical drug addict. Lie to you, lie to your face, lie about everything,
Yeah.
and it made me very cynical when dealing with anybody who had a drug problem. And I didn't believe that Buff Bagwell really had his leg cut off. Like I thought it was some weird gimmick to
Oh,
try to get
really?
sympathy or pills. Yes, when I first read the story, the
Oh,
first
wow.
thing I thought of was, wow, this guy is really working hard to work everybody to
I
either
almost
get
sent you a
sympathy or
picture.
pills.
I almost sent you a picture of him.
It's and it's cynical of me. And I said to my buddy, I was like, he sent me the picture, and I was like,
Oh,
fake
okay.
news. Yeah, I was like, fake news. And he goes, no, it's not. Go, really? I didn't believe it. But
Yeah, no,
because his whole
I can definitely
career,
see why.
yeah, because from him living, kind of having this Mrs. Robinson relationship, I guess you could say, with Missy Hyatt. Maybe there's not that big
Right,
an age difference, but she was older than him, and he was the
right,
cute high school boy. To
right,
then her turning him over to Jim Barnett, which of course the Barnett reputation second to none,
right.
and then he winds up over in Global
Hmm.
and as the handsome stranger. So yes, there
Hmm.
were always those rumors, and then Georgia Indies, and then WCW, um, but with a whole series of stops and starts and gimmicks and second
Sure.
chances, third chances, eighth chances, and never really
I'm in a
seemed to break
gigolo.
through. The okay, so out of all the gimmicks, my one of the ones that I liked was when he was in a team with Scorpio, with Too Cold Scorpio.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
mind that. Um, I didn't mind. What else did I not mind? I mean, he was just sort of there, and I
Yeah.
just was
His
like, why
work
is
never
this
did
guy
anything for
getting?
me.
Yeah.
I liked his work as a babyface when he was first came in, when he was young, hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and learning. But when he turned it into being Buff, Bagwell, and I mean, Buff and I'm the stuff and all that stuff, and started riding with the Steiners and all that. I mean, that ego, his ego was of that. Look at it. He went up to WWF, the WWE after it got bought out, and on the show, he says, I thought I had a good match with Booker. And I was sitting there saying, oh, it was the shits. It was
Yeah.
horrible. And because first you're wrestling it, you went from an 18-foot ring with cable ropes to a 20-foot ring with regular ropes. So there's an adjustment there. And I bet you he never even went out there before to get into the ring just to see what it was like. I can probably almost guarantee he didn't do that. And in WCW, you didn't have to. There wasn't like the WWE way where you block off the ring and chop it in half, work it from those ways because it's such a big ring. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's you definitely can tell that people don't know how to work in a big ring from over there.
It was, and I just remember the reception that they got. It was set up to be a failure all the way around. Unfortunately, my friend Scott Hudson was tabbed as the commentator. I was there in
Mm-hmm.
the studio in Stanford when he got his audition,
Oh, okay.
and from all indications, his audition was very good. He was
Yeah.
certainly very nice to everybody, which it never changed. He was
I always
always
liked
just,
Scott Hudson.
yeah, just a
He
great
always put me
guy.
over, so I really liked him because he put me over on TV.
Attaboy. But just a
Yeah.
good dude. And everybody's
Yeah.
like, yeah, what a nice guy. I said, well, and I remember thinking, God, they all really believe the propaganda that everybody in WCW was evil. Um,
Yeah.
it wasn't. They were just a different company. But again, where did they have the match with Buff, and it wasn't in like Washington State? Can you imagine the
Oh, wow.
response that they would have gotten if it was in Georgia or South Carolina?
Right, yeah,
They would have
Charlotte or
been, let's do something to see if they can get over on their own in a hostile environment. They didn't want to see anybody from WCW.
right. Now, do you think him getting released and all that has to do with him getting into a fight with Shane Helms?
That happened. I
I
know
mean,
that
do
happened.
you think that has to do with why they didn't you think that had to do with part of the reason why they cut him loose?
I think it was probably the match one, and then
Mhm.
Shane Helms
Oh, he's a troublemaker
potatoing him.
too. Yeah.
Yes. Reputation coming in. The match was a stinker,
Yeah.
and they didn't fire Shane Helms. They just said, you can't have your name. You have to
Right.
be somebody else because we can only have one Shane, and that's my son, Shane.
Yeah.
Um, but again, they didn't let him go. They kept Shane
Right.
Helms.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, he was lower on the card than Buff
Oh, yeah.
Bagwell was.
Yeah, because Bagwell would have been considered like a semi-main event guy, not the top of the roster, but up near the top.
Sure.
You know,
He
getting up there, back up and down. He could have been in a main event match anywhere in the country.
yes,
With WCW.
he would drop the fall as the heel in
Right.
every tag match scenario on top.
Right.
Nobody would blink an eye if you saw Kevin Nash and Buff Bagwell representing the NWO versus Ric Flair and Kurt Hennig, let's say.
You,
It
you
would
know
it
the,
would
the the craziest thing that I think irritates me the most about Bagwell was after he got released and all that. It was Vince's fault that he lost his house. You ever seen that kind of stuff out there?
yes.
And it just drove me crazy. Well, are you living above your means? You
Right.
have to have a $5,000 a month mortgage.
I
So
know.
it's I don't have sympathy for guys that because I know he had guaranteed money with WCW and they were making he was probably making a million and a half a year, I bet, guaranteed.
Wow. That's a lot of cabbage for a guy like that.
So a lot of the WWF guys probably right off the get go when they, took over, bought them out or whatever, a lot of the guys sat out because they had that Turner deal, the
Mm-hmm.
Hall and Nash and um, a bunch of those guys sat out because they're like, why am I going to go work for Vince, which they've already been there, so they know there's no guarantee, your downside guarantee, and then everything else is off of what you produce. So they're like, we're going to stay home. Bagwell never worked over there, so figured, because his ego was so much bigger than what he could, produce. He couldn't keep up with his
Right.
ego.
He would do one thing, which was walk away from guaranteed money because he wanted to come into WWF, which you could say, wow, that's an honorable thing. Here's a guy who's working hard, who wants
Yeah.
to earn his spot. But no, he thought the opposite. He thought because I am Buff Bagwell, it'll be easy for me to walk in and just
Even
get
in the
over.
even in the interview, he says, I had a spot. I was supposed to be the top guy I was going to be the biggest guy in the company.
I don't think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. First of all,
Now,
Vince probably said, who the hell is this pal? He had never
yeah.
seen Buff Bagwell before, which is an amazing Vinceism, but is true 99% of the time.
So
He
that's
didn't
true.
know you.
That's true. Now we're going to give some behind the scenes things here. You worked with Vince at Titan.
Yep.
Now, did Vince watch other wrestling? Did he
Nope.
watch his competitor, or is the truth where Vince didn't look at anything?
Didn't look at anything. He
Wow.
had it. I always said he had a TV on his face. That's how he saw the world, was through TV, and he saw
Hmm.
all of his superstars the way he wanted them to be on TV. So
Right.
showing up and looking like you do on television was beneficial for you.
Right.
Um, the flip side, and talk about guys. Dusty did that with Mark Merrow. Well, Vince did that with Antonio Thomas of the Heartbreakers, and they became the Heartthrobs.
Oh, okay.
He saw him. He was an enhancement guy. He's from the Boston area, and Tom's a good-looking guy and incredible shape. Works out faithfully, religiously, and is all natural from all indications.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, Vince saw him and was like, "Holy shit, pal!" And John Laurinaitis came and grabbed him. I'm not sure if the both of them were there, but I knew Antonio Thomas. The other guy worked in the office. Actually, he had done some like office job, and transitioned
Oh, wow.
into wrestling. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Matt Morgan. Here's another one. Matt Morgan
Uh-huh.
was friends with and worked out with um, one of the graphic designers in the tower, not at the TV studio we talked about last week, but he was good friends with a guy named Marco, who was a graphic designer who created posters, images, worked on the magazines, did different
Right.
tasks within, whatever creative services would hand down. We need this piece of art created for this publication or this ad to run here. And that was how Matt Morgan got into the WWE universe, if to
Right.
use that phraseology, and wind up
He had a
getting,
hook. He used a hook to get into that,
yep.
like you said, the universe where he would get
hmm
noticed.
And that led to Tough Enough. And then he got hurt on Tough Enough. And Big and I talked about, once he's healed, let's make sure that we give this guy a second look and we don't forget about him,
Oh,
because
really?
there was something there. We knew it.
He was like, what, 7-footer, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And had a presence about him, had something about him. And for whatever reason, Vince didn't see it. And that's the way it goes. Vince
Wow.
did not watch other people's TV. He would occasionally watch other things. He would watch
Right.
a movie. He would keep up on current events. But
Was he
again,
a comedy, action drama? I wonder what his fancy was.
in 1996, so I had not been there very long. They had me sitting in while Vince and JR and Lawler would do commentary for that night's Raw. They would
Hmm.
record commentary on Monday, and
Oh, when it
then
was taped.
for the taped episodes, so that they
Right.
could be as timely and as topical as could be. And in one of the stop downs, Vince said, I watched a movie the other night, and it's the funniest movie I've ever seen in my whole life. Kingpin. Kingpin was the funniest movie. And if you think about it, the type of humor that was in Kingpin, that's right, with Bill Murray
Wow.
and Woody
Yeah.
Harrelson. Um, I think that people could go, yeah, I could see that. So up until his life, from whenever he was born until 1996, Vince said the funniest movie he had ever seen was Kingpin,
Kingpin.
and had
I
just seen it.
wonder. I wonder the guys who are already there. They have contracts, but everyone's always trying to work their way up. So they're like, yeah, I could talk to him about, oh, I know he likes to fish. I could talk about fishing, or yeah, I know he likes football. I could talk about this. I wonder if guys are trying to figure out what's something I can connect with Vince on to try to, enhance my career. I wonder if,
You could talk to him about weightlifting,
oh,
about
okay,
working out, and he would
gotcha.
invite you to work out.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and I never worked out with him, but I would see him at the gym. A lot of times we would be working out at the same time, and then I
Do they
quit
have a gym
working.
there?
Yeah, in the Titan
Oh,
Tower on
okay.
the second floor.
Was it a good gym?
I guess as far as gyms go, it seemed to be very nice and very shiny. Had a lot of shiny weights and mirrors and neon. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was going to the gym on the regular for a while. I really got into it, and then I stopped going.
Yeah.
I quit getting into it. And he was like, pal, I miss seeing you at the gym. I used to see you all the time. What's going on? I just kind of, you should get back. It's good for you. It's good to
And now
see you
you
there
look back
too.
and say, "Fuck, I should have been there every time he was there." You know,
Yeah,
that would have been a perfect in for people to be at the gym
yeah,
when Vince is there.
right. And Vince,
You
of
used to
course,
run
famous.
the bleachers, right?
I did. I love
Yeah, I
doing
know.
that.
No, I'm saying because you used to run the arena before, right?
Yeah,
I remember vaguely remember that.
I loved
That's just
running the
something that
arena.
they took that thing out of my head and made more room for my brain, so a little more memories coming out. But I
There you
remember
go.
Kevin Kelly running the stadium.
Yeah, I used to love doing that, and Paul Ellering would only do like one section. He just would run up and run down and run up and run down. Of course,
Right.
he was a marathon runner and could run circles around me, but I enjoyed getting the whole view and seeing the whole and completing it. Getting all the way around. Where the arena in Fort Lauderdale where the Panthers play, that one sucked because that was a lot of like 2-step over to the left, three-step
Oh,
over
yeah.
here.
See,
Oh,
you can, yeah.
I didn't like that one. But yeah, so Vince
Were you
sees.
like, man, when they were in civic centers and in auditoriums and stuff like that, and when they grew bigger and the crowds grew, you're like, oh fuck, look how big this building is now.
Yeah, right. Like I used to, you could run the Broome County, you could run the,
Fort Pierce
Mid
Civic Center, you
Hudson,
can go up
you
and
could run
down.
Fort Pierce. It's up, down, and then you're done. It,
Did you run Madison Square Garden?
no,
No. Oh, what's the biggest arena that you ran? Now we're really getting to the behind the scenes dirt here.
see now some of the older buildings. So the Allstate Arena in Chicago
Okay.
had a lot of steps. I ran
Oh, I got one for you.
Go ahead.
Municipal Auditorium in St. Louis, Missouri. No, Kansas City. Kansas City. Chase wrestled there when he was little. I
Yeah,
wrestled in that building, but Chase wrestled there, and it held probably 30,000 people. It was huge, and it just went up, up, up. Like when those ones that just go and they just grow so big
right,
that is just straight up. It's not like you're talking about where the BB&T Center or whatever it is now, where the Panthers play, where it goes. It's
right.
crazy.
No, this was so the older buildings where they would just go
Yeah.
and keep going. I ran the dome but it's not really a dome, the Tacoma Dome.
Oh, okay.
That was a big wooden roofed indoor building. That was where I introduced Vince to Bob Sapp, and that didn't do anything for Bob Sapp's career. He wound up being okay on his own.
You
Yeah,
think Vince would
Chicago
have
was
been impressed by him, like in big guys and everything?
yes,
Yeah.
you would think,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It it just could have been anyone. It, you could tell Vince one thing on Monday. You could have an hour-long conversation with him about it. He would agree to it. We would dissect it, put it back together. He would agree, done, go. Tuesday conversation. You start to put the plan in place. Why the fuck are you doing that, pal?
Oh,
We just
wow.
don't tell me what I said. Get
Oh,
rid of
wow.
it. He was nuts. So
Wow.
if I would have caught him at a different time, if I would have caught him at a different moment, it could have been different for a lot of guys.
Oh, I'm sure a lot
I
of people, hey, what kind of mood's he in right now before they go and approach him to pitch him something,
and I said, what difference does it make? Because he's probably not going to remember it. I said, just do it. Just get it done and
All right,
see
going
what
back to
happens.
more important, interesting stuff. Did you run the buildings with anyone else, or you just did it solo?
I usually would go by myself. Coach occasionally would do it as well.
No Trish Stratus or anyone like that?
No,
No?
no, no, no. No.
Uh,
That's my wife used to say, "Oh, all these pretty girls." I'm like, you realize that they would have to have interest in me for this to work. I could
yeah.
sit there and go, "Oh, look at those. Yes, all of these beautiful women around," but none of them would ever give me the time of day. Are you kidding me? I was the third string announcer. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, they're not
I'm
looking, oh, let me find, oh, that's a good one there.
yeah, no. No. Um Now, somebody like Bagwell, of course, could have had. But all right, so you bring up an interesting point before. They moved the calf muscle up to
Mhm.
his thigh. Now, was this the calf implant or the actual calf
No,
muscle? Because
the
wasn't the
calf
rumor that he had
implant.
calf implants?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he had calf implants, and they went bad and caused an infection because silicone or say whatever it was, he was allergic to, and so they had to take him out. And he was talking, and it showed an interview back from way back when. He's like almost talking about just cutting his legs off instead of losing his big calves.
Oh,
And um, I'm a person. I've always had really big calves, nice calves and everything because I was genetically blessed with big legs. And so it was, I guess, someone that has small little twig legs would really want those, but no, he had to have them removed. So
would you intentionally wear low boots on your days booked where Bagwell would be around and you'd sit there and throw that calf out? Look at this,
I
Buff.
would I
Look
would
at this.
stretch, do calf
Wow.
raises. Have the calf going all the way, split going over the middle, having horseshoe,
Right.
calves and everything. So I did
Show you.
sit next to the rock where he had. You remember he had his boots where the calf was cut out because he had big
Right.
calves. Yeah.
Great boot style.
Oh yeah.
And Buff was there with his little twig legs.
Yeah. I did
You,
notice that he started wearing long tights after that.
yes, he did. Now, do you think okay, so but guys like they probably had to sit and talk with guys like Steve Austin. Who else would have known this person, that person, and okay, what are they like? The ones that are coming over from WCW. What are they like? What are they like?
Right.
And I don't imagine everybody jumping up and down and saying, please bring Marcus Bagwell in because we need him.
Right. I would love to
It's
see what Steve said about him.
or
He
even
probably said Booker T. He probably said, "Yeah, that Booker T. He works hard. He's a good kid."
right.
Bagwell, especially after the Buff Bagwell, the whole Buff is I'm Buff and I have the stuff, and because he literally talking about living your gimmick, you know, that's his ego was so big it was hard to get through the roll up door that it brought the ring in, the semis. That's
I
just
could
how he
only
was,
imagine. Yeah, I could only imagine like the interactions that Steve would have had. And again, Steve kept receipts about everybody who ever pissed him off or wronged him. You know, look at Jeff Jarrett. And I'm sure he had to have receipts from Bagwell. I know he had receipts about Mark Marrow. Um, and Buff is much more polarizing than Marrow was
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
extreme.
because Bagwell was so Bagwell, he traveled with the Steiners,
Yeah.
and the Steiners had bigger than life personalities, but that was just them. They weren't putting on a show, putting on an act, or that's just how they were,
Mm-hmm.
and Buff just kind of, he just kind of went in with them, and I don't know. And I know Jarrett rode with them at one time. I rode with all of them once, and um, it was a crazy ride.
They
I
were all
remember when
taken.
we got to the building. They're like, someone's like, I bet you're never gonna ride with them again. I said, nope, not at
Damn.
all.
Were you worried about getting heat whenever you rode with those types of guys?
Um, no, I mean, not then. I can see where you get heat from the other enhancement guys and stuff like that. But this is at the point where we were doing TV for 3 weeks at a time at one place. So we're there the whole time,
So it wasn't so
So
much riding with them, but it was being in the same car with them at the same time that was going over to the building that we were all going to for the
well,
15th
we
day in
might
a
have been
row.
going to like do going from Orlando to Jacksonville, 2.5 hour ride to, do a pay per view or a nitro or something like that. I would,
Mm-hmm.
get it, catch a ride or something like that. And um, but yeah, we were all together for so long that everyone just became, "Well, it's just one of the boys," When Arn Anderson introduced me to Stephanie McMahon, he's like, "Oh, Stephanie, I want you to meet a friend of mine. This is Casey Thompson. He was one of the boys from Atlanta." is how he introduced us, because WCW is always known as Atlanta, and
Yep.
WWF, WWE was known as New York. Oh yeah, I want to go to New York, and that means WWE. Atlanta was WCW, where they're based out of. Well,
Hmm.
not even, which is even weirder. I guess they get the whole New York because of Madison Square Garden, because that was their territory and everything. Even though they're based out of Connecticut, no one would say, "Yeah, I want to go to Connecticut." No, it's New York.
And
That lasted for the
When it
longest
was
time.
Crockett Promotions, it was Charlotte, not Atlanta.
Right.
Charlotte was one of the buildings that Georgia ran, and I guess
Yep.
because of the prominent position that Georgia had in the NWA, that was how the territory got to be known as Atlanta, or where you
Yeah.
were in that vicinity. You worked for the Sheik, you worked for Vince, you worked
Hmm.
Atlanta, you worked for Roy Shire, you worked for Vern, you worked Kansas City, you worked Dallas because it was the Dallas booking office,
Amarillo,
Amarillo for the Funks,
and then Blackjack
Tennessee.
and Murdoch bought it at one point.
Yep. They had also Jack and Flair bought Knoxville.
Oh, okay.
So according to the story that Ron Fuller tells, when the Furious Five or whatever they were called, and they were trying to expose
Blackball.
Ron as being the owner of the territory or whatever they were
Right.
called.
Yeah.
It was Ronnie Garvin, and
Boris
Malenko.
Malenko,
Yep,
Bob Roop.
Orton, Roop. Roop was the ringleader, and he sold the territory to Barnett. Although, according to Ron Fuller, no money ever changed hands. And then Mulligan and Flair bought it off of Barnett, and I don't know if any money changed hands for that. And so Mulligan tried his hand twice, at least twice, in ownership of territories with
Right.
mixed results, negative
Right.
results, I guess we can say. But
They
those
weren't
were
big territories.
no, and both were obviously, if he would have gotten into, in '74 when Ron Fuller was
Yeah.
able to get it away from Joe Kazana
Yeah.
with the help of his grandfather. I always, Ron tells that story, and I always wondered, like, was there some pressure? Did it make it easier with knowing who his grandfather was, Roy Welch, and the
Right.
fact that he was coming from, Eddie Graham? Like, how much pressure were they able to put on to Kazana in Knoxville to get that territory so that he could start
Right.
running at least that town? Because it wasn't a
Yeah.
territory, it was a town.
Right.
Uh, uh, Jerry Jarrett, Christine Jarrett, they owned Johnson City. Harry Thornton and Nick Goulas and Roy, they owned Chattanooga. So there wasn't like a lot of available real estate, let's say, and everything. Well, there's no territory here. Let's set up wrestling, and it didn't go so well, because they would try like Colorado or
Right.
different places that didn't have wrestling. But basically, at one time there was 28 different territories that you could have worked in just the
Damn.
you know
10
in just
years,
America.
15 years before, we would have been set. Had 20, imagine having 28 places to go and wrestle.
Yep.
Now, granted, you're not going to get rich by any means. You're going to make a living, but you're going to make a living like a rock star, doing what you want to do. And, you know, they pretty much, it was travel,
Mm-hmm.
wrestle, party, gym, workout, travel, wrestle, party. It's just constant, So imagine having 28 different places to go to. And definitely everyone was a networker back then,
Sure.
because they would like, hey, let me see who I can call. And it's not like nowadays where everyone had a cell phone. You'd have to leave a message, and they might call you back a week later or 2 weeks later, when they got into where their phone was. Or
Right.
if someone was there when they called to check in, yeah, Casey called from Florida, wants you to give a call. And then they call, say, from Texas. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like it is now. But you imagine having 28 places to go. Now there's what, two, three, two
Yeah.
and a half? One and a
You
half
could
or two,
it when
three
a
places
guy
equal two.
leaves, yeah, because let's take all of the independent promoters, because there were independent promoters even back then. There were places you
Sure.
could go,
Yeah,
and
Outlaws. Yeah.
yeah, and when guys would leave the WWF in the mid '80s, there were all sorts of different promotions that
Right.
ran in the Northeast. There was too much population to be able to not have outlaw companies pop up.
Right.
But yeah, so you're going and you're trying to work where you are, but you're never sure if you're going to get your notice, if your notice is going to be given to you, which was 2 weeks. We're going to finish you up, kid. We're going to move you along.
Yeah.
You got 2 more weeks. So you got 2 weeks to find a place to be and get there with all your stuff.
Or if the booker liked you but wanted to bring you back, he'd say, "We're going to finish you up, but I got you somewhere to go,"
Right.
which happened
Because
a
they
lot.
wanted you to go away to come back.
Right. Get fresh, come back, and pop the territory again.
Yep. Happened all the
I
time.
remember Bugsy told me in the mid '70s when Dusty turned babyface in Florida, the territory was on fire. He
Right.
says it's the biggest houses he ever been. Every night was a sellout everywhere in Florida then.
Right.
He said
It
it was just on
was,
fire. The whole territory.
and they had started priming that pump in 73,
Hmm.
and it was, when you looked at it, so Florida was the great wrestling territory, and during that time, Jack Briscoe, the hometown, the homegrown guy, even though he's from Oklahoma, he had
Right.
really spent the bulk of his career there. Well, he became the NWA World Champion, so they didn't have
Yeah.
him as a draw, and the other baby faces were interchangeable parts, and they didn't have that guy
Yeah.
um, until they turned Dusty in 74. 74 has to be one of the biggest years ever, because they turned Dusty in Memphis. That was where Jerry Lawler was anointed to be the star,
Yeah.
and they started to push him with wrestling all of these main event stars, from Bobo Brazil and the Sheik to Mr.
Oh yeah.
Wrestling 2 to getting shots against Jack Briscoe, and made him the man in Memphis.
Right.
Um,
He got so big that he got points off the territory. He got a
right.
percentage of. He was an owner because I don't want to do it. I'll leave, and they didn't draw without him.
Yeah. Think
He
about it.
got uh, he got a percentage of the territory. We're just talking about different guys buying territories. He didn't have to put up anything. Just
That's why
his
somebody like,
name alone got him. Yeah.
yeah, why didn't Jerry Lawler wrestle other places? Well, he did occasionally if he was on vacation and he would want to pick up a little payday while he was in Florida,
Yeah.
um, at the beach. But why would you want to leave and go anywhere else if you were figured in and in the main event or in the main spot every night, and you had short drives? And if you didn't feel like
Yeah.
going to the far drives, if you want to go to Louisville or Lexington or Evanston, you didn't have to go. Boy, oh boy, what a good spot to be in. Evansville, not Evanston.
And you're still making money off the show anyhow.
Yeah. And you were making, 4 to 5 figures off of the house just one night a week. You got to figure Lawler was probably averaging $3,000 a week just in Memphis, I would say, when the
Yeah.
territory was hot, because he was
Right.
figured in as the main event. He was also getting a percentage of the profit.
Right.
And
Good spot.
when, again, it was Jerry Jarrett kind of overthrowing, getting rid of Nick Goulas, but
Yeah.
making sure that he brought Lawler with him. And Lawler was the draw. And
Yeah.
it's funny because Jackie Fargo, who you think of, he was the draw at one point, but he had passed the torch on to Lawler. So
Right.
Fargo
Yeah.
Fargo stayed working for Nick, but then, you know, within a few months, he was over there wrestling for Memphis whenever he felt like making the drive. But
Yeah.
it's fascinating. So, but if you were not figured in, Casey,
Mm.
and business was still good, how much money were you making? How much money was, Bugsy, who would be mid upper card, was he making 800 to $1,000 a week during that time, do you figure?
Yeah, I remember him telling me when he was in WWF New York, he was making $300 a week.
Okay, that
And
was
this
in the
was
60s.
60s. But Bruno Sammartino liked him. So, and he liked him because he was one of the only heels that went out there and sold, made the baby faces look good. And so he wanted to leave. Everyone's like, you got to get out of this territory. But Bruno
Mm-hmm.
wanted him to stay. So Bruno went to Vince Sr. and was like, hey, I want him to stay. You need to give him a bump. He said, in the stroke of the pen, he said, I went from $300 a week to $800 a week. Just from Bruno
Jeez.
saying, we want to keep him, I want to keep him here. And
Yeah,
then he ended up main eventing Madison Square Garden, sold out the garden with Bruno, for the title.
that was in what, 69?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and okay, so within my lifetime, so late 60s, early 70s,
Right.
went from $300 a week, which was, covered your monthly rent in 1 week, and you had some
Yeah.
extra. So let's think about it, because rent generally was, for a really nice place, 175 to 250. That was pretty nice
Wow.
apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and not Manhattan, but you could
Right.
live
Yeah.
comfortably in New Jersey, just over the bridge.
Sure.
That'd
Yeah.
be fine. And yeah, so just think about that, folks. And then you go to 800 a week. Well, you're
Mm.
still in 175, $200 a month apartment,
You're making some money.
making some money.
Yeah. I do like watching seeing the old, you see them on Facebook or things like that. The old pay stuff, the old pay sheets, from to see what people get. Some guys like in the 70s and 80s were making 1,500 for the night, and
Right.
then down to 200, 150, 200. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to watch it. A lot of the old Houston stuff has came up over the
Yes.
years. People have their payout stuff.
Paul Bosch had very good records. And then, of course, there were those sheets. And then there were the sheets that they would turn into either the athletic commission or
Right.
whomever, what were the real numbers?
Right.
Because yes, you were going to pay Tony Atlas $750 because he was wrestling Harley Race for the title, or
Right.
Tony Atlas got $2,500 because Harley Race was there and they were the main event. Whatever the advertised main
Right.
event was, they got the bulk of the money. They would get 8% each. But then what
It
would
was
be the
pretty
real?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was pretty interesting back in those days. 30% went for talent,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they just broke it all up. And then how much the promoters were making. And that's why guys wanted to start getting their own territory, you know?
The only way to make, real FU money in wrestling was to own your own.
Sure. Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's, I mean, I think that's kind of, um that's still true today,
Oh, yeah.
but there are more millionaires now in wrestling than ever before,
Yeah.
thanks to Vince, thanks to the vision of, and the power of television and the big money that's thrown around now with deals, with broadcast deals,
Yeah.
and how these companies are flush with cash. When you
And
look
they
at,
say thanks to Tony Khan because he's overpaid a lot of people.
well, sure, sure.
Yeah.
And when you looked at, okay, so Buff Bagwell, getting back to him, he was making let's just say $1 million a year.
Sure. Yeah.
Ugh, I mean, and he
Jack.
was on a lot, but he wasn't considered like a top wrestler.
Right.
He was background. He was, lettuce on the plate of the NWO. He was garnish.
Yeah.
and he would wrestle in matches that generally didn't have a finish. Then he got hurt, right? Didn't he break his neck?
Yeah, he broke his neck, then came back. Because I watched it last night or so, the night before. They kind of did the timeline. He broke his neck with the Steiners, supposedly. I've seen enhancement guys take worse bumps than that.
Okay.
Um, but he broke his neck. He came back and was Scotty Steiner's bodyguard or manager, or walked to the ring with him, and then started creating his whole buff, and then turned into NWO on, Scotty Riggs, and
Poor
so
Scotty Riggs.
it's he has new teeth now.
Who, Scotty Riggs?
Yeah,
Hell
Paige got
yeah.
him. Nubia got him new teeth. New teeth. I saw that.
Damn right.
I was telling my girl that I said back when the whole um, WWE Hall of Fame was starting to come around, all the boys, all the old timers, they're all getting new teeth from Vince. That's how Jake the Snake got his. One of the things for going to the Hall of Fame is Jake got a set of teeth. He got his teeth fixed. He got dentures,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see a lot of those guys they all got Vince bought them all new teeth,
See,
which is
mine
the
are a little
craziest thing because
discolored.
I'm
Still got,
hiding mine. I wrestled Jake the Snake, and after he had the new teeth, and I threw a punch and I tatered him, and his teeth did. Woo! He's like, "No, my teeth."
oh,
His
no.
teeth. It was actually in the newspaper. Wrestler knocks Jake the Snake's teeth out, and they're false teeth, and he saw them and put them back in his mouth.
Short arm, DDT. Go home.
There's an Olympian. His name's Ken Chertaw, and he has all these camps for amateur wrestling. He's a freestyle. He wrestled at Penn State and
Mm-hmm.
everything. He coached Penn State after that. So he had all these camps and everything. He was wrestling this one kid that was one of his um, clinicians that came and helped, and he gave him a crossface, and the guy's eye fell out and rolled down the mat.
Oh,
And the guy
no.
took it and he's like, got it and popped it back in. The
Ooh.
story's going home. Mom, Chase, like, Mom, Chertal knocked someone's eye out with a crossface. All these young kids and everything.
And she was probably like, oh, my God.
Like, what are you guys doing? What are you having my kids see and do?
Yeah.
And
What kind of world is this that you've got my kid in?
yeah,
When you have, okay, so um, when you're making a million, that means you're immediately throwing what 35% in a separate account so you could pay the IRS every year, right?
supposed to.
Yeah. Making a million
Ric
doesn't mean you make
Flair
a million.
didn't. Flair
No,
didn't.
a lot of guys didn't.
He's been
That's
getting
like,
in the news a lot lately too about falling asleep at the bars.
oh,
Um, crapping himself at the bars.
I don't get
It's
it.
I mean, there's someone. I mean, it's kind of sad because I always liked Flair.
Mm-hmm.
He was always very cool to me. The interactions I had and stuff like that. But he's what, almost 80 years old, so he's
Yeah,
probably, I'd imagine, wearing a Depends, an adult diaper. And you
it
think?
depends.
And then some people are really, really, they're all like really healing on him and everything. And then some people like, hey, my friends are servers and bartenders, and he hooks them up, like tips them really, really well, like big money. He's a good
Yeah,
tipper apparently.
I saw
So,
Flair. I saw Flair backstage in AEW, and I was like, I am going to stay as far away from him as I possibly can. I tried to avoid most people that I saw in AEW. I really
oh
seriously
wow,
did.
how
Anybody
long were
who
you
was,
there?
I don't know, 6, 8 months.
Oh, okay.
It took me 3 weeks before I was like, "Oh God, I've made a horrible mistake."
You been
Um,
going there?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, 3 weeks. I came back after a show and I was like, I've asked for things to change because they were not getting us the information in a timely basis, and Tony was then giving us the information kind of on the fly, or having Mike Mansory give us the information on the fly.
Oh, in the IFB
Yeah,
or
and
the
it
headset?
just over the headset. And I'm trying to take notes, and I'm trying to, and there's some things that I needed like just practice on, or I wasn't sure of the timing of. And
Right.
sometimes you get lucky and you just guess the timing, and then other things are quicker than you expect it to be. And that was always the
Right.
case. Everything in AEW from a production standpoint was quicker than I expected it to be. So I came back and just threw all my shit down and was like, fuck this place. This is stupid. This isn't fucking television. This is dumb.
Now,
Um,
in the flip side, do you wish you kind of just were like, because you care about the product, you care about what you put your, what you do, you care about your presentation. Would you
yeah.
rather just say, you know what, I should have just been like, I don't give a fuck, I'm making money and I'm just gonna do it and don't care? Because some people get mad and get frustrated over stuff when it's like, just don't give a fuck. I go to work, I make my money, and I go home, and
Yeah,
I don't
I
care.
was making 350 a year,
Wow,
and I
wow,
could have just shut up and been fine, but I couldn't.
mm,
I couldn't.
wow. Because
So
it's something you care about the business, you care about what you do,
I
and
care
you
about
see
every
where it
aspect of
could
it.
go if it's done the right way.
Yes. Why are we not
Right.
doing it this way? Because I know this way works. We've done this way before. And the excuse was Mike Mansory said, we work for an autistic billionaire. And I said, okay, there you go. This is the co-executive producer of AEW. He
Wow.
said it to me and Nigel. We work for an autistic billionaire. Okay. So this is the hand I'm dealt. I didn't
And
realize
Tony
it was
tries
like
to
that.
be so hands-on with everything, right?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Which there is nothing wrong with. Um, but there again, when we explain to you the hows and whys of why this could be better or that could be better, and he doesn't get it, and you're not getting through to him, it's very frustrating.
Right.
It's
How
very
did Jim
frustrating.
Ross or Tony Schiavone deal with that? Where they're like, I don't care, I'm getting paid.
Tony Schiavone didn't care. He's a complete yes man.
He still
And
is, right?
oh yeah. And Jim Ross had more cachet than I did. So he was able to say what he thought things should be, and
There's no
either they would,
repercussion.
yeah, there was no repercussion on him, and they might entertain it a little bit more than if I brought it up, even if
Right.
it's the
'Cause he
exact
was
same
probably
thing.
making at least 500-600, right?
At least.
It had to. Not knocking you. 350 is great. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's a
He's Jim
generational
he's Jim
announcer.
Ross. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Jim
He's Gordon
Ross.
Soley, Jim
Yeah.
Ross.
And I'm Kevin Kelly. I have no ideas that I was better than him. Now, at the time, had my skills surpassed his? Yes,
Yeah.
because he was old and I'm
Right.
not as old, and I still had voice and clarity, and he could do it in very short spurts, but couldn't do a whole show. And I was not only doing entire shows by myself, but I was doing entire tours,
Oh,
mostly by
wow.
myself in Japan. So
Yeah, yeah.
I was conditioned physically,
Right. You
mentally to do
conditioning
this.
right. You have to condition yourself. I had to condition myself. I know it sounds funny. I had to condition myself to do a podcast, to be able to talk, my throat, my voice, to be able to talk. First, we did 30 minutes. Now we do an hour. We do whatever now.
Yeah.
But I had to condition myself to. At one point, I was doing a lot of podcasts, trying to just do a little PR thing, trying to, go out there and, talk about the show and stuff. And I was like, oh, I was always eating cough drops and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So, yeah, so I get that. You conditioned yourself.
Yeah. and you would know who and what's going on, and your voice is getting bigger and stronger. Um,
Right.
and you're trying your best to stay, especially during like the summertime. So the G1's gotten started, by the way. We will be keeping tabs on the tournament. Tournament's already off to a bad start for New Japan.
Oh,
Gabe
wow.
Kidd injured his knee, and I don't know if how many matches he's going to miss. He forfeited last night's match, which he may have lost anyway, so it may not affect the scoring. But if he's out and he can't wrestle in this tournament, then it's going to be a bad thing for New Japan, because
Oh,
he was
wow.
figured in, and they need everybody. And they need the
Yeah.
guys who are going to be top guys to get over. And we can't afford injuries at this point, because New Japan business is teetering on the brink. It's that bad.
Oh, fuck. I'm gonna have to pull my fucking boots out and go over there, I guess, to help them
Brother,
out.
they need you. The teams need you.
Damn.
You got a fresh,
Yeah.
fresh spot
I
right
can
there.
I can easily go hard way and get to pop that thing back open.
Yeah, because they don't even get the
You
gimmick
know.
over there. They get a little bit
I
of
have my
sauce every once in a
Halliburton
while.
over there. I got my Halliburton. Talking about Halliburton, when you were a young wrestler, when we were young wrestlers, it's funny the things that when you're like, I'm a real wrestler. It's like I drive in a luxury car, or I rent a Cadillac or a town car. You walk into the building, you have a Halliburton, or you have oh, hello, I like King Corsos.
There you go. That they know, right? They know Mr. Thompson
Or you
as you're
walk
being
in with
waved in.
a Halliburton, or you wear a Rolex or something like that. It's like, yeah, I made it in wrestling. So, but yeah, I got my Halliburton. The wheels are um ready to roll. But I'm gonna let them try to figure it out themselves. I'm not gonna go over there.
So we'll
You know.
keep an eye on it. So far the turn, and this, of course, the main story of this year's G1 is that it's Tanahashi's last G1. He had not been in the previous two G1s because of his feeling that he was not going to win because he wasn't good enough. But now he wants to be in this last one because he wants to say thank you to all the fans, and he promises he's going to do his best not to embarrass himself. But he's under no delusions that he's going to win the tournament. So
Right.
this will be his opportunity to take one last bow in a G1. But lo and behold, he wins his first match. So can Cinderella, dance at the ball again? It's wrestling. Anything could happen. But they need
Yeah.
Gabe Kidd healthy. They need everybody healthy. They can't afford it. With Naito leaving, with Okada leaving, with Tanahashi departing soon, Hiroki Goto injured his elbow. He's out. So the tournament is lacking a lot of star power. It's a lot of new
Yeah.
guys, a lot of young guys, and they can't afford Gabe Kidd to be out. But we'll keep an eye on the
Yeah.
G1.
Well, as we come to a close of the show, let's get an update on the pro wrestling August 9th at the Carlisle Center.
All right, so here's what's going on. The radio station's running ads, and I made an appearance on Red 102.3 this week.
Nice.
We had a great day on Thursday in the town getting to meet business owners. And
Hmm.
these relationships that you're developing as a promoter may not necessarily bear fruit today or tomorrow, but they are long-term relationships that
Sure.
will benefit each other. We shared
Right.
some ideas, and we kind of said, "Hey, for this thing in December, what about?" And oh yeah, and we could use you for that. What about? So there's
There
some
you go.
symmetry there. Um,
Nice.
I've never had the red carpet rolled out to me, and not because I'm Kevin Kelly. They don't know who Kevin Kelly is. Some people will go, "Oh yeah, I remember you," but for the most part, I'm just guy saying I'm the wrestling promoter. I have never
Right.
had the red carpet rolled out for me in any scenario like this before. It's like the people are starving, not realizing that wrestling's been around for 100 years. I'm like, oh my God, I grew up with it 40 years ago and I haven't seen it since.
Wow.
How come we don't get wrestling here? Well, we do now. Um, so
Hopefully that's going to be good.
we'll see. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of buzz. Um,
Right.
we're we're selling tickets every day advanced,
Oh,
and
that's good.
yeah, so we're at getthetix.com. So we're moving product there. It's slow, but it's starting to add up to where the advance is pretty decent. And I think
Nice.
the walk
That
up's going to be huge.
Yeah, walk up is where the majority of independent promotions get their stuff from.
Yeah.
So,
And we
and then
are
you got to get the sale. You got to get the return sale tickets. So they buy your ticket for the next show.
we're going to have tickets on
That,
because we already know
yep.
our return event. So Saturday, August 9th
Nice.
is the debut. And then we're coming back to the same building on Saturday, December the 13th
Okay.
with the big Christmas spectacular. So,
Excellent.
yes, we will have tickets on sale for Saturday, December 13th, on Saturday,
Perfect.
August the 9th. But it's going to be a big couple of weeks, man. And then the last 3 days, it's a dead sprint. Like, I'm off from work. A couple of guys are off from work so that we can just be there doing whatever we need to do in the town. If it's
Mm-hmm.
running in front of traffic and stopping cars and whatever we're going to do, we're going to go further than other people have gone before. Put it that way.
Nice. Very good.
Because this is what you do, and it wouldn't matter if we were 90% sold out on our advance. We would still do this because
Right.
this is what you do when you promote a town.
Yep.
And I'll be living at the radio station. I'll be living. We'll be trying to push out as much material as we can on social media. Oh, press kit's going out tomorrow to all the local newspaper. There's not much newspaper anymore, but all the newspapers and the television stations and all the radio stations. My buddy Ryan
Perfect.
McKenna, who I worked with at WWF, he's helped out in that regard, and he's
Oh,
got a really
wow. Nice.
really professional press kit that's going out. And
Very good.
yeah, so it's a lot of facts and figures and information and how to get into contact with me and how to get in contact with the
Did you
wrestlers
tap
if they want.
into your Rolodex to people like that for this event, or just a little bit, or
Just a little bit.
okay?
Ryan is, he's a great guy, and he kind of reached out to me.
Oh,
I'd
nice.
have a feeling like if Adam Hopkins wasn't working for AEW, he would have reached out to me. He would have said, "Hey, how can I help?" I've had a bunch of people that have said,
Right.
"How can I help?" And it's
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
okay, yeah, let's think. How could I use you? But so I've called in a few favors, of course, but
Right.
we need to just because I don't know what like I can pay everybody. I know I'm giving the wrestlers like a decent guarantee. Everybody gets paid the same.
Right.
Nobody's making any more than anybody else,
Okay,
and
good.
because they're just their names on a page. Nobody knows who any of these are. They're coming to see the wrestling. They're not coming to see
Wrestling is
Hayes.
the
Yeah,
right.
because
Wrestling is
it's
the draw.
right. It's the first time in a town in
Yeah.
20 years.
Wow.
So
Well, that's
yeah,
exciting.
it is. It's exciting, and um, I could be like Mr. Monopoly, just here with no clothes on. Nobody will want to see that, but I'll be wearing the barrel. Or we'll see what happens. But no, I'm really excited about it. And again, getthetix.com, time honored excellence, the pro wrestling on Facebook. It's all over social media. And just drop me a note if you want tickets. I can hook you up. They're
Yep.
not free. Not you, Casey. Of course, you could get in for free. But I'm talking to our fans here. I could set our fans up with a good discount on tickets.
I
So
saw some of the packages you have. They look pretty good. All you can eat pizza.
yeah,
I was like,
nobody's more over than pizza at an independent show.
oh, absolutely. That is
Today
like,
I
make
went
sure you got
to.
enough pizzas.
That's it. Sorry, guy, go 5 minutes more. The pizza's not here yet. The
Exactly.
today I went to the bowling alley and did some business and got some tickets moved and posters hung. And then I went to Buffalo Wild Wings. Same thing. Talking with the staff and the managers there. Just trying
Nice.
to put it in. I'm not a smoker. I'm not a vapor, but you go to the tobacco hut, the vape store.
Sure. Yep.
get a poster there. We got one in Carlisle. There's a location in Mechanicsburg. And the guy that was working in Mechanicsburg says, I don't know anything about that. Let me call the boss. And the boss said, oh, yeah, no problem. So,
There you
because
go.
he's a wrestling fan. So that's where that stands. Anything going on with you, Casey, that we need to know? When is the next luncheon with the legends in Tampa?
September. I'm not sure the date on it, but it's in September sometime. I think
Okay.
that's the one before the last one of the year. So that should be should be good.
Mm-hmm. Are you at all interested in perhaps you and I doing our own version of the Coldplay Kiss Cam video?
I saw that.
I would be the guy diving on the floor, I think, right?
Yeah.
I would have to be. Or you would just tater me. So like the spot is, you're holding me and then you see the kiss cam and you spin me around, bang, right? And I fall down because you hit me for real. And then you just go back to
Although
just
right now
watching the
you could
show.
just tater me a little and I'd probably pop right open, get some good color.
That's it. That's what we're there for. All right, buddy.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing these with you so much. Like just
Yes, they're fun.
getting to talk old stuff, old school wrestling with you is a blast. And I'm just
Yeah, it's
glad
fun.
that we get to do this together every week.
Yes, it is good.
All right.
I
We'll give
enjoy it myself.
we do want to thank everybody, want to thank all the fans who are consuming this product in a multitude of ways, including the shorts on YouTube. Remember to like and share and subscribe and pass it along. And everybody behave themselves this week and enjoy a late July. Don't be, looking to put calf implants in or to do anything outrageous. Because again, it leads to no good, and eventually you got a little nub. And of course, my buddy Joel Yentis is like, "Oh, why don't we do Zach Gowen versus Buff Bagwell?" And I was like, "Come on,
Oh, nice.
yeah." And then he
I'm already
said,
thinking of the thumbnail for the it's like maybe a picture of, I'm buff and I don't have the strap.
"Ah." Then of course his old tag partner, Too Cold Scorpio, allegedly had a third leg, but that's an entirely different podcast and a road we don't want to go down. All right, so that's going to do it. Casey's going to get to work on the artwork. It'll be brutally honest and insulting, I'm sure, like always. But for
Yeah, why
Casey
not?
Thompson, I'm Kevin Kelly. We will see you next week on the In Ring Wrestling Podcast. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yes.
All right, there.